The current socio-environmental scenario has already showed the depth of the changes that will affect the way we conceive our society and our cities. In Spain, the coronavirus track is among the worst in the world. We've been through a long lockdown and we are still figuring out the next steps to slowly enter the new normal.
In order to present a representative and unique case, we have chosen Eixample as a compact city model, a revolutionary urban design in the need of its next reinvention.
In 1859, engineer Ildefonso Sardá plans an extensive grid as a very rational, hygienic response to the harsh condition of life within the walled city, with continuous epidemics and diseases. The new tissue is designed as an expansive regular grid with a carefully balanced system of structural arteries that define the main connections of the city.
All blocks were 130 per 130 meters, with northwest to southeast orientation to maximize daily sun exposure, plus wide streets of 20 meters that would be the arteries for a healthier city.
Originally, each block was to build up on only 2 or 3 sites with a depth of 20 meters and height of 16 meters. In between the 2 or 3 build-up sites are recreational green spaces providing a green belt for the entire city.
The selected dwelling backwards is placed in the Eixample Dreta neighborhood. The built surface is of 1.52 hectares and each block gives home to around 800 inhabitants. The density in Sardá grid is 531.2 inhabitants per hectare. Take this block, for example. It has 28 commercials and 275 dwellings.
After the lockdown, some of the business of this specific block didn't make it through. 7 ended up closing. Regarding the dwelling typologies, we can distinguish between two kinds of situations. The first one, and most common, is the sequence dwelling, which has 2 facades, the principal one and another one orientated to the corridor facade. The second type is usually more divided, 2 dwellings in the main facade and 2 in the corridor facade, sharing both of them a patio to optimize the ventilation.
The main problems detected in dwellings during the lockdown go from how to correctly isolate the infected people, lack of sunlight, or lack of space in general.
The Mediterranean lifestyle implies a lot of social activities, sharing spaces for leisure and general street life. This implies that we are used to going through a lot of dangerous situations regarding the expansion of the virus, where we are exposed to several daily events.
The scenario object of the design research is based on the duality that we'll be facing in the near future, between new normal and sporadic lockdowns due to uncontrolled outbreaks of the pandemic that are likely to happen regarding our lifestyles. More than a decade ago, the theoretical concept of superilla burst in the urban scene.
Aiming to group all the blocks in units of 3x3, following some general traffic logics, a street grid that closes off the heavy traffic through it, like buses, big trucks, or any vehicle trying to cross from one part of the city to another.
Inside the superblock, the speed limit is kept to 10 km per hour, and sidewalk parking is replaced by underground parking.
By winning back surface from the cars, you open up the street space for markets, playgrounds, events, and higher public space quality.
Now that this concept has been tested in different spots of the city, and with the urban crisis caused by COVID-19, we think that it's time to take a step forward and accelerate this change by starting implementation of these concepts in other neighborhoods intersections.
The strength of our proposal resides in programming the needs of the inhabitants of one block. we define strategies to conceive ways to colonize and transform the near city, such as colonizing community space, the courtyard, colonizing public space, colonizing the rooftops, recycle office spaces, and recycle closed businesses.
Ephemeral structures arise in different strategic spots of each block to enhance the neighbor's life quality both during the lockdown and new normality. We imagine a multi-purpose structure that can adapt to the needs of each circumstance and each persona, depending on the current situation. Pre-designed models that can be colonized in infinite different ways, enriching the spatial appearance and facilitating post-COVID life for the inhabitants of the blocks and superblocks. In this second scenario of sporadic quarantine, the superblocks become the functional units of the city. Its inhabitants will find in those 9 blocks the essential shops to buy what's necessary at that time. Supermarkets, grocery stores, herbalisry, pharmacies, fruit stores, bakeries, drugstores.
At this scale, a rapid implementation measure is needed so that it can guide the behavior of people in public space. With pain, and at a very low cost, it's possible to act quickly on the streets of the superblock, defining guiding systems for the citizens.
In this way, we create bike lanes. We expand the waiting areas for public transport. We separate the sidewalk into 2 areas, one for walking and the other for waiting at the door of the shops. We create leisure areas for children and rest areas for the elderly.
The parasitic artifacts become private, defining themselves as a personal extra space for the dwellings. Connections are limited and public space amenities are closed. Quarantine cells for infected people are set up.
When distributing the program in our block, we try to maximize efficiency. Multipurpose and co-working spaces are located on the existing office building as well as the main access to the courtyard. In the interior structure, the public uses, such as the outdoor gym or the study rooms, are placed on the lower floors. The lockdown rooms are located on the higher floors to ensure greater privacy and isolation. All these uses will be completed with gardens along the circulation spaces in order to recover those green spaces projected by Cerdà for the interior of the blocks.
Illustrated in a single block, the real potential of our project is that it can be applied in the rest of the 9 blocks of the superilla, furthermore to the rest of the Champlain district.
This is what we believe could become the efficient response our city's near future needs. First steps for a revolution, maybe the start of the yet to come new hygienism.
Hello and welcome to our final presentation. We are Dala, Carlota, and Veronica from Vienna University of Technology. In human history, there were different factors that formed the world that we live in today. Such factors could be either political, cultural, but also those where a human being has no influence on. This year is a perfect example. It showed us that life is full of unexpected twists and turns. COVID is not the first pandemic. Each pandemic in history changed the way of how a society lives and the general approach to design of cities as well as homes. The current situation likewise demands a new approach to living, working, and socializing. We started with a deep analysis of what we're dealing here with, and decided to take the subject in 3 different aspects. These are COVID as a health-threatening virus, COVID as a life redefinition, and COVID as a psychological barrier. Each of these aspects create their own problems. these issues we're facing in buildings in such ways. Most of our pre-pandemic life circles were similar to this image. As we were in a constant movement in between spaces, home was just one other space which created the core of our lives. With the pandemic, our homes, before being the center of life, turned into the entire life itself. The main thing pandemic era showed us is that how desperate we need the open plan structures. Pandemic leaves no time to replan a city and its dwellings. Therefore, buildings that support multifunctional usage and thus are open for adaptive reuse become more important. Design without predefined usage can be seen everywhere in Vienna and its historical architectural city tissue. These typical Viennese houses are called Zinshaus. Starting from the 19th century, most of these houses built were relatively usage neutral, as we say in German. What makes these houses visionary is their plan. Instead of creating predefined rooms, the layout of Zinshaus was rather natural in terms of usage, which means that living and working could easily take place under one roof. Thanks to these, Vienna is one of the cities which has multi-use in residential areas in its genes. In 19th Viennese district, there's a building called Upper Tower, which served for many years as Vienna International Press Center. Even though the structure has been a prestigious property for more than 35 years, and a home of many international media agencies, today it's deserted and standing there waiting for its end. The tower was sealed 15 years ago, and building companies want to take it completely down and build brand new luxury residences with additional hotels. This building is not the only example in the city. There are many others which share the same fate like Upper Tower. But we see a real potential here and hoping to propose a strategy which would affect all these beautiful buildings sharing the same fate like this one. After taking all these into consideration, we decided to solve this problem of the city's deserted buildings with potential, and Upper was a great place to start. Apart from current panic about COVID, there are also more permanent concerns in architecture that needs to be considered, such as economical, ecological, and environmental issues. Taking down of a building is more difficult as it may seem on the first glance. Approximately 50% of demolition materials will go completely to waste. Therefore, any transition to low carbon or carbon neutral built environment must address both new construction and existing buildings. The Upper Tower is located between the Danube Canal and a residential area. The close proximity to the canal offers not only a lavish green environment, but also many outdoor leisure activities such as jogging, riding a bicycle, and many more. The bicycle route can either be a direct connection to the inner city or lead to beautiful outskirts of Vienna. Since the building site is located in a rich network of infrastructure, the area may become a vital element in Vienna's future urban development. We'd like to show you how our analysis transformed into our design. We started with analyzing our existing structure, Upper Tower. It's a skeleton system building based on a concrete grid system. We started with opening up some parts of the building. Building's stairs are heavily damaged and partially collapsed. Existing core was kept but adjusted with elevators which can be adapted into pandemic, as well as a stair system which creates a void in the middle. Open parts of the building, as well as the roof, are redefined as open but private spaces. And additional balconies, which are completely light material, are ordered in a symmetric way to create not only a kinetic view on the facade, but also allowed us to design communication bridges between people. We will mention this further in next slides. Since our design is based completely on adjustability and modules, we'd like to explain it backwards, starting from inside and going outside. All apartments are coming only with load-bearing structure in it. The rest is adjusted completely by the residents according to his/her/their needs. Here we're looking at one exemplary unit of ours and seeing it in 4 different scenarios. Above, we have 2 variations with 1 bedroom, 1 office, and 4 bedroom. And below, we are seeing the quarantine version of these 2. As one apartment can host a family with 2 children, one other can be a big 1-room workshop for an artist. As students can share one apartment, the other can be used as a home office by an architect or a dentist. As we just mentioned, you also can see it in the floor plan that apartments are naked in terms of room separations. And the circulation path designed in between the apartments have its both ends open, which lets air flow through the floor, and this air joins the air in void between the stairs. You'll see this way better in sections in a couple of pages. And here is our ground floor, cafe and piazza. The existing structure is equipped with a spacious 1-story high addition on ground level. This additional part, since it's open plan, can house many different functions. In order to create a richer programmatic experience, we decided to go with a cafe that could serve as an attractive point for community. Since facades of an open plan building doesn't have any load-bearing function, this part can easily welcome changes in its design. In order to meet COVID-19 requirements, it was necessary to replace the closed facade with flexible, completely openable, ceiling-high glass door elements. When opened, the borders between indoor and outdoor space disappears. Inside becomes outside, as well as vice versa. By doing this, a wind circulation is created. Piazza. In front of the cafe, we created a piazza. In order to help people remember of a social distance during events, lines, panels, open cinema, etc., the place was equipped with circles on the floor with proper distance from one another. The principle that is being applied here can be used in any outdoor square. Foyer. The principle of opening and closing elements that was applied on the cafe was applied here as well. In this way, the space of the foyer becomes a transition between inside and outside. In order to create more air and space, the bottom slabs were removed up to the skeleton structure. In this way, it gives more space for higher trees and vegetation, creates a very strong connection with nature. The concrete structure grid can be either left open or filled depending on the actual need. Foyer is only for the residents of the building. In order to prevent a crowded indoor space, the foyer was equipped with several entrances. In this case, we created a split level. Since the doors here can be opened totally, it creates a good ventilation. This room is a multifunctional place that can be used for different programs such as workshop, meeting place, open cinema, and many more, while fulfilling of social distance requirements. During Corona lockdown, many people realized the importance of being outside, even though having balcony for some people cannot replace outdoors. Out of this reason, we decided to create a space in the house where people can go and feel outdoors without being outdoors. As a first step, one slab was taken out in order to create more room height that's necessary for the outdoor feeling. Further, the area was divided into private, usage-free parcels. Each parcel is owned by a resident. Just as the design of the apartment, how each individual parcel is being used is up to its owner and separated from each other with plants, creating not social but natural distancing. On the top of the building, there's our rooftop, which serves in a similar way like our sky garden. Since elevators are considered as the most dangerous space in a building in terms of highest risk of infection, our idea is to use a glass elevator with ventilation openings, which is operated by foot pedals instead of typical buttons we press with our hands. These elevators can be seen here. And here we have our first and second floor, our free space and activity area, and our sky garden with people doing many different activities such as gardening, yoga, reading, sunbathing, eating, chatting, and more importantly, socializing with each other without fear. In case people don't feel like going down to the sky garden, or pandemic gets worse, that we completely lock ourselves in our apartments, balconies created in asymmetry will create many different communication paths for the residents. Here we have two structural sections and two other sections explaining the natural air ventilation. Here we have a look at the horizontal ventilation we created, and here you can see the vertical air ventilation better, which I mentioned previously. Even though we are showing our design here, our approach to this project was more like creating a strategy which can be applied with adjustments to many different places. And what makes it important for us is what we design is not only serving for COVID. How or when, we still don't know, but what we all know in common is that we will get rid of this pandemic, like many other we did in history. But this approach we gave will be able to continue without any additional adjustments since everything is movable, editable, openable, closable, and removable. As we're coming to the end of our presentation, as you remember, in the beginning we defined the potential risks in a building during pandemic, and as we finish, I'd like to show our checklist once again. All elements of a typical building which carry risk of an infection are taken into consideration and designed in a complete new mentality. Trouble caused by COVID, trying to use our house for many different purposes, are solved by transforming it into a complete living machine. Psychological aspects of COVID made us create a brand new housing definition and take this beautiful building to today's needs and set the standard. While designing, as you've seen, we took many medical, psychological, architectural, environmental, economical, as well as ecological criteria under consideration. After all this work, we hope that we managed to save this beautiful building. Thank you very much for your attention throughout the presentation. Greetings from Vienna. Stay safe.